unto your name. Be unto your name. Holy, holy Lord God Almighty, worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Highest praises, honor, and glory be unto your name. Be unto your name. Be unto your name. You, O Lord, are my refuge. You are holy and just. You are faithful and righteous. You, O Lord, are my refuge. By your mercy you cover me. Under the shadow of your wings, Lord, in your presence I'll remain. You are forevermore the same. You are my refuge, my only refuge. You, O Lord, are my refuge. In you I find rest. You're my God and my fortress. You, O Lord, are my refuge. By your mercy you cover me. Under the shadow of your wings, Lord, in your presence I'll remain. You are forevermore the same. You are my refuge, my only refuge. You, O Lord, are my refuge. It is you I will trust. You're my light in the darkness. You, O Lord, are my refuge. By your mercy you cover me. By your mercy you cover me. By your mercy you cover me. I will never be the same again. I can never return. I close the door. I will walk the path. I'll run the race. And I will never be the same again. I will never be the same again. I can never return. I've closed the door. I will walk the path. I'll run the race. And I will never be the same again. Fall like fire, soak like rain, flow like mighty waters again and again. Sweep away the darkness, burn away the chaff, and let a flame burn to glorify your name. There are higher heights, there are deeper seas. Whatever you need to do, Lord, do it in me. The glory of God fills my life. to glorify your name. I will never be the same again. I can never return. I've closed the door. I will walk the path. I'll run the race. And I will never be the same again. No, I will never be the same again.
Let the weak say I am strong. Let the poor say I am rich. Let the blind say I can see. It's what the Lord has done in me.
Let the weak say I'm strong. Let the poor say I am rich. Let the blind say I can see. It's what the Lord has done in me. Hosanna, Hosanna to the Lamb that was slain. Hosanna, Hosanna, Jesus died and rose again. Hosanna, Hosanna to the Lamb that was slain. Hosanna, Hosanna, Jesus died and rose again. Into the river I will wade. There my sins are washed away. From the heavens mercy stream of the Savior's love for me. I will rise from waters deep into the saving arms of God. I will sing salvation songs. Jesus Christ has set me free. Hosanna, Hosanna to the Lamb that was slain. Hosanna, Hosanna, Jesus died and rose again. Hosanna, Hosanna to the Lamb that was slain. Hosanna, Hosanna, Jesus died and rose again. Let the weak say I'm strong. Let the poor say I am rich. Let the blind say I can see. It's what the Lord has done in me.
It's what the Lord has done in me.
As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people. Surround us, Lord. Surround us, O Lord.
We welcome you tonight to our Bible class here at the Hartselle Church of Christ. And if you're live streaming with us, you probably noticed something is a little bit different. We've moved out of the studio and we've moved into our classroom here in the old auditorium. And so tonight you're going to be joining our class live. And don't worry, we're still going to be studying the same thing that we're supposed to be studying, and that's the book of Philippians in just a few moments. So we're glad to have our live stream folks. We're glad to have those of you who are in class tonight. The Lord willing, we plan this coming Sunday night, especially for all of you who are on live stream, to be here at 5 o'clock for our Bible class. And we're going to begin a study in the life of David on Sunday night. So we join you and encourage you to join us for our live stream at 5 o'clock Sunday. Very quickly, let's go through our announcements. There are announcement sheets at the back. And if you are not getting the newsletter through email, please let us know and we'll make sure that you get that as well. Also, we have a brief outline of our lesson for tonight if you didn't get one of those when you came in. On the front of your newsletter, notice that we have the men's meeting this Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. And then after that, we're going to be cutting trees. If you got a chainsaw, it'd be good to bring that, along maybe with some gloves as well. Also, this Sunday morning, remember our last leaders kickoff will be at 9:15 in our fellowship area, and encourage all who can to come and be a part of that. Also, the Sunday night Bible class, as I mentioned, will begin this Sunday night. All classes will begin this Sunday night at 5 o'clock. If you'd like to participate in the circles, just make sure you come to the main concourse here outside of our old auditorium and see Dr. Walker, and he will have a little bucket you can draw from and tell you what classroom you're going to go in. There'll be no more than 8 chairs within a classroom, and they're going to be discussing 1 John. So keep that in mind as well, and you can participate in that. Going inside the newsletter, let's look very briefly at the sick. Jimmy Summerford, the tests are looking good, and he seems to be doing better. Tara Summerford, her surgery went well today, and we're thankful for that. And then you see all the others that are mentioned there, but those are some changes there. We extend our sympathy to Joe B. Burgess and the death of her niece. Also, there's some free greeting cards out in the Commons area that were donated to us. And if you need some cards to send, go out there, and they're yours for the taking. Also, keep in mind our trunk of treat, October the 31st, from 4 to 6 p.m. And Mark says what we need more than anything else is we need more trunks. So if you can bring a trunk so kids can treat, then let Mark know so he'll have a count. Also, this was added to the announcements. It's not in the newsletter. There's a Ladies' Day at the Coleman Church of Christ, Saturday, October the 24th. And the speaker is Debbie Dupe. And if you would like to go to that, ladies, it's from 8:30 to 1. See Sue Sims, and she'll be glad to put you down for that. If you got any questions, see me afterwards. Then also, we are we want to help the Martin Vogelaar family. They are going to journey up into I believe is it Michigan? They're going to Michigan for the funeral of their sister. You know, we announced that she was killed in a plane crash, and they thought they had some plans, and that fell through. And if you'd like to help them, the kids to go up there for their sister's funeral, you can give that to any of the shepherds, and we'll be glad to make sure they get to it. All right, I think that's all that I wanted to mention on the announcement sheet. Make sure you read. There's tons of announcements. We're going to have a word of prayer, and then we'll get into our lesson. Would you bow with me? Father, thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be together tonight in our study. We thank you for all those who are here and those who are on the live stream with us. We pray that you'll bless each and every one of us in our study tonight. We have so many, Father, that are hurting and that are sick. And we just pray for them in a very, very special way tonight. We pray for Jimmy Summerford. We're thankful that our prayers have been answered and the tests seem good. We're thankful for Tara that her surgery was well. For Kathy Reynolds for a speedy recovery. For Betty Owens. For James Payton. For Bobby Slusher. For Scotty Cowell. And we certainly pray for Joby Burgess and the loss of her niece. So many more that we need to be praying for, and we just reach out to you tonight and we intercede for them, and we ask for your blessings in their life. Thank you. Be with us in our study tonight, and we pray that our study will be profitable. In Jesus' name, amen. For those of you who are on live stream with us, especially on Facebook, if you, as we go through our class tonight, and you have a question that you would like for us to deal with, we have Harry and we have Daryl here, and they always have an answer for a question. So just type it in on Facebook. Matt's back there. And at the end of the class, we'll see if there's any questions that you would like to ask that we might address having to do with our lesson for tonight. All right, all Bibles are open now to Philippians chapter 2. And we're going to be looking tonight at verses 12 through verse 18, specifically in a few moments, verses 14 and 15. We're in this series that we have titled simply, Joy in the Journey. And keep in mind, we're not going just verse by verse, word by word in the book of Philippians. We're just going through and we're looking at these passages because so much is said about joy, what these passages can say to us and how these passages can help us when it comes to bringing more joy in our life. We have looked at joy and discouragement. We have looked at joy and conflict, and Paul has dealt at least twice already about that. Well, tonight, I guess you already noticed, we're going to talk about joy and complaining. And we're going to see how that complaining is draining. Salah. Remember, you pause and you think about it. This is serious stuff, so pause and think about it. Here's what David was doing. He was saying, Lord, I don't get this. You know, the bad guys are prospering. Look at all these guys. They're chasing me. They're doing these things. I'm trying to serve you, and I'm trying to live for you, Lord. And this is, Lord, I don't get this. In fact, you know what the favorite phrase of a whiner might be? What do you think the favorite phrase of a whiner is? It's not fair. It's just not fair. That's the thought of a whiner. It is just not fair. I thought of this text in Matthew chapter 20, in verses 11 through 12. You remember the story of Jesus tells about the master, and there's the vineyard, and so he needs some people to work in the vineyard. He goes out at the very beginning of the day, and he gets somebody. He says, I'll give you a denarius to work all day. Okay. Well, he goes out at 9 o'clock in the morning, gets some more people to work, goes out at 12 o'clock, he goes out at 3 o'clock, and at 5 o'clock, 1 hour before quitting time, at 5 o'clock, the 11th hour, he finds somebody. He says, I need somebody to work an hour. He says, okay. And they were all paid the same. And what happened? And when they had received it, that is, these people had worked all day long, they complained against the landowner, saying, these last men have worked only 1 hour, and you made them equal to us who have borne the burden and the heat of the day. What is the theme here? It's not fair. It's just not fair. Well, folks, you know this. You're the Wednesday night folks. Life isn't fair. God never said it would be, okay? And we can complain all day long if we want to, but that doesn't usually change things, does it? It doesn't change the fact. All right, here's the second person, kind of complainer. It's the martyr. It's the martyr. And I thought of Moses here. You go to Numbers chapter 11. In Numbers chapter 11, you go to the first verse there, and Israel's been complaining, like they did all the time in the wilderness. And they were complaining because they didn't have any meat. All they had was a little stinking manna. You know, I mean, it was just complaining. And Moses finally just had up here. In fact, God got so upset with their complaining, the Israelites, that some of them were killed by fire. But Moses had headed up to here, and just think about these words here of Moses as he writes about them, and he's talking to God, you know. God, you got to look at me here. So Moses said to the Lord, why have you afflicted your servant? And why have I not found favor in your sight, that you have laid the burden of all these people on me? Poor thing. Did I conceive all these people? Did I beget them, that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom, as a guardian carries a nursing child to the land which you swore to their fathers? Where am I to get meat to give to all these people? For they weep all over me, saying, give us meat that we may eat. I'm not able to bear all these people alone, because the burden is too heavy for me. If you treat me like this, please kill me here and now. It's not funny, but it's just listening to Moses here. If I have found favor in your sight, and do not let me see my wretchedness. I think you see the martyr complex here in this text. What do you think the favorite phrase of a martyr is? What's it? Oh, woe is me. Okay, anybody else? Here's one. No one appreciates me. That was Moses. Nobody appreciates me. A whiner is a whiner and a martyr. A martyr loves a pity party. Here's the next one. The cynic. The cynic. A good example of that is Solomon. Now keep in mind, these are Bible characters that are strong and very influential in the Bible. But they were caught up in this like we get caught up in it. And Solomon says this, vanity of vanities. Well, that's empty. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit has a man from all his labor which he toils on the sun? One generation passes away, and another generation comes. I mean, it's just the same old, same old. But the earth abides forever. And then go down to verse 9. That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. And there's nothing new under the sun. He's saying, you know, this is just bad. He says, but what has been done is going to be done again. That's just the way life is. It happens and it happens. It's like, you know, we got children and you go in to clean their room up and you clean it up and you get it all fixed, and what happens here in a little while? It's all, and you got to do it again, right? And you do it again, and you know, maybe it's like you ladies when you do the laundry. You know, you just wonder, I just washed these clothes 2 days ago, and I got to wash them again. I just washed these towels. You know, that's his attitude toward life. It was the cynic. What do you think the cynic's favorite phrase is? Nothing will ever change. Nothing will ever change. What's the use of trying? Why try? You know, it's not going to make a difference. And then there is the fourth one, the perfectionist, okay? Some of you may live with those people. Sometimes you can't please perfectionists. I mean, there is absolutely nothing right. Everything has to be done their way and no way at all. What do you think is the favorite phrase of a perfectionist? I'll just do it myself, all right? That's a good one. I'll just do it myself. See what I had. Is that the best you can do? Well, that's the way it is, and that's a good one that Harry mentioned as well. In Proverbs 27:15, the writer says this, a continual dripping on a very rainy day and a contentious woman are alike. Now, ladies, before you flog me after this class, that same thing can apply to men, okay? I want to just point out that a continual dripping is a very, well, it doesn't get much done. constant nagging, whether it's a man or whether it's a woman or whatever, it's not going to help the situation. It always makes the situation worse. Nagging will never correct an issue. I mean, if it does, it's a rare, rare thing. In fact, it usually makes it worse. All right, let's look now at dealing with complaining. Paul writes to these brethren at Phillip Hines, he says, we don't need to do this. And he says in everything, don't complain. Well, how do we deal with it? How do we do what Paul suggested there in verse 14? Well, here's what I suggest to you. First of all, we've got to admit the problem. Okay? We got to admit that we have a complaining problem. I mentioned earlier, it's hard for us to see it sometimes in ourselves, right? Other people might see it, but we can't see it. Proverbs 28:13. He who covers his sins will not prosper, but whoever confesses and forsakes them will have mercy. You can't be successful unless you admit your faults and your problem that you have in life. We understand that. We understand if you're an alcoholic and you go to AA, they want you to say, I'm an alcoholic. You go to any of these addiction treatments, and the first thing they want you to do is for you to admit that you've got a problem. Well, that's the way it is in just about everything. We've got to admit that I've got a problem with complaining. And sometimes that's the most difficult thing in the world, to see yourself as you really are. I don't know. That's hard. It really, really is. It's easy for me to look at Philip and say, well, you know what? I'm not a complainer. You know what? I just have this gift of discernment, okay? And I know a little bit more than that person does, or I know a little bit more about that situation than that person does. And so it's easy for me to do it. It might be interesting for us to, if we could, to record ourselves, video camera, one of those little cameras around that everybody does, and just have it there and listen to ourselves after the end of the day of how much maybe we do complain. Sometimes when it comes to complaining, it's like a lot of other subjects. People will come out and they'll say, Brother Hines, I wish my daughter was here. I wish my husband was here. I wish my wife was here. I wish somebody was here because they really need that lesson. And I'm thinking, ooh, I think you need that lesson as well, It's just hard. It's just very, very difficult. And I might mention this as well. Folks, it's wrong. It's sin. So we ought to take this thing seriously. We talked about the Israelites a while ago. That was the thing that kept them, that first generation, that was one thing that kept them out of the promised land. They were just constantly complaining and complaining. So, you got to admit the problem. Anybody want to add to that? Anybody want to talk about how difficult it is to admit it? Sometimes we just need somebody to tell us that. Well, most of the people don't have the guts to, do they? They just don't have, they don't want to be nice, and they don't say, you complain a lot. But here and again, if somebody told us that we complained a lot, would we really listen? Or we just say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Any comments? All right. Here's the next thing we've got to do, and that's accept responsibility. I think this is the very important thing right here. We've got to accept responsibility for our own life. One of the characteristics that you'll see in people who complain habitually is that they like to blame other people. They want to focus on somebody else beside themselves. And here's the scenario I'm talking about. Here's a problem that they created. It's a problem that they brought on themselves. But they blame somebody else. And you see that all the time in so many situations in life. Now, the reason we do that, by the way, is why? The reason I want to blame Jim, I created it. I really brought it. It was my choice. It was my decision. But I want to blame Jim. Why? Makes me feel what? Makes me feel better. Yeah. It makes me feel a whole lot better. You see, that's a really a good cop-out that we use all the time. We like to transfer our pain to somebody else. If we can do that, it just makes us feel better. When in the final analysis, we've made the choices. I see this a lot in church work. You see it in every situation, and you could probably think of some other situation, but I see this a lot in church work. Here's a person that is coming to church, and they go out and they get caught. Maybe they get with the wrong crowd, or they get caught up in sin. And the next thing you know, they're not coming to church. And so time goes by, they're caught up in sin, and then maybe someone says something to them and says, "Man, we've missed you at church." And what do? They want to blame the church. I've been away for 6 months and nobody has said one word to me or called me or anything. Now, folks, we need to do that. Don't misunderstand me. But you see, it's easy. If I can do that, I can say, "It's you people. That's why I'm not coming. Y'all haven't come to see me." It makes me feel better about what I've done. But who created the problem? The person did. The person got caught up in sin. And it's just easy to shift that responsibility. I've seen that happen in many, many different scenarios in the church. It's just easy for people to blame the church or other people for it. Can you think of an example of what we're talking about? All right. Look at this passage. Proverbs 19:3. Now let this sink in for a moment. The foolishness of a man twists his ways. You got it? The foolishness, your bad choices. The foolishness of a man twists his way, messes you up. And his heart frets against what? His heart frets against the Lord. There are people who will go out and ruin themselves. And it's their own mistakes and it's their own choices that they make. But they blame the Lord. That's what he's talking about here. Listen, if you drop the ball, you can't complain where the ball bounces. I mean, in the final analysis, you made the choice and the decision. We all know the principle, you reap what you sow, right? And when we start reaping what we sow many times, we want to complain. And we want to blame other people of choices and decisions that we make. Once we make a choice, we are no longer free from the consequences of that choice. There are several examples we could go on and talk about. I was hoping maybe some of you would think of some. Debt. Sometimes people in their homes, they get way over their heads in debt. And then they start blaming other people. Or they want to blame, they don't make enough money, they don't do this or whatever. And in the final analysis, who made the choices to spend that money, to get into debt like they did? But it's much easier to complain, to shift that responsibility because it eases the pain. You ever think of any other illustrations? The three kinds of people. I read this, thought it was interesting. There are the accusers who complain. It's your fault. Can you think of anybody in the Bible that was an accuser? Right at the very beginning. Adam, the woman that you gave me. You see, it felt so good, didn't it? He's a perfect example of what I'm talking about how we like to shift the responsibility. No one put a gun to Adam's head and make him take the fruit that Eve offered him. But then God comes along, he says, the woman you gave me. Well, that's the way it is. That's an accuser. Then you have excusers. Excusers will excuse themselves because they're the product of their environment. You know, this is the way I was raised. When I was little, my mommy wouldn't let me throw my food off my, little table where I ate on the floor, and I'm all messed up because of that. Or I got a little whipping, and I'm just really all messed up. And I'm the product of my environment. And then you have the choosers. And the choosers, they're the folks who accept responsibilities for their own choices. So I think this is one of the main things as we look at this second one. It brings on complaining. And we have to accept responsibility for the decisions we make. Surely somebody wants to say something about that. Okay. I know you're saving it to answer the questions that those people on the live stream have. I know you're doing that. Well, let's look at the third one. You got to admit the problem. You got to accept responsibility for your choices and things. And you got to practice speaking positively. I mentioned a while ago that complaining is a habit. And we talked about it. It's a difficult habit. Here's one thing about habits. The only way you can break a habit is to replace it with something else. You got that? If you've got a negative and you want to get rid of this negative, you've got to remove it and place it with a positive. It's one thing to say, okay, yeah, I guess I'm a complainer. I admit, I see myself up in some of these things that you mentioned. It's another thing to say, I'm going to work on this. And I'm going to stop some of this stuff, and I'm going to put some positive language in. And I'm going to really, really work on this situation. You know the passage, Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. You replace complaints with compliments. That's hard to do, but this is how you deal with it. This is a crucial point in parenting. Notice Paul says in Ephesians 6:4, and you fathers do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and the admonition of the Lord. He says, you don't bring your children up with this negative stuff, with complaining. You bring your children up. You don't provoke your children to wrath, but you bring them up in a wonderful, encouraging way. You don't tear them down, but you build them up. All right. Those are the three ways that we can deal with it. Any comments on those? Yes.
The first 3 rules of foreign mission trips?
Yes, that's good, Alan. That's Alan. When we go on mission trips, and I remember this so well, we get in, we have our meetings, and rule number 1 was what? Do not complain. And rule number 2 was? Do not complain. And rule number 3 was? Do not complain. You know, you have to go because you take Christians on a mission trip, and if you don't sort of do something like that, they're going to complain. They'll complain about everything. That's good. That really is. Yeah. Anybody else want to add to this? All right. Let's look at the results of complaining now. Let's go back to our text. We looked at it, and we want to look at verse 15 in particular. Notice he says that you may now, he just said in verse 14, I don't want you complaining anything, okay? And here's the reason why. That you may become blameless. What does he mean by blameless? He says, what now? Okay. All right, what else? You see, you don't complain. When you don't complain, you don't find fault in people. And they don't find fault in you. And therefore, you're blameless because they don't see you complaining with other people. Notice this second thing. He says, here's what will happen. You'll be children of God without fault. And what he's talking about is you'll have integrity. You'll have integrity. When you live your life and you try to, not have a habit of just continual complaining, you are a person, he says, of integrity. And people will see you as a person of integrity. And then notice this one here. This is really good. Here. Among whom you shine as lights in the world. What's he saying? When you put, don't complain, And when you do, you'll shine His lights in the world. What's He saying? You're going to stand out, right? You're going to stand out. I mean, you think about it. We live in a culture that's just negative. It's just the way it is. And when you find people who are not like that, they shine like a star in a dark, dark, dark night. Because those people are few and rare. And He says, that's what I want you to be. And that's what you need to be in Philippi as Christians. You need to shine. And one of the ways that you can shine, you can be a joyful person. Just make sure that your life is not continually just caught up in complaining. Let's close tonight with verse 13. In verse 13, this is, remember, just before the verse when he says we don't need to complain. He says, for it is God who works in you, both to will and to do His good pleasure. He says, here's how God works in you. You want to know how God works in you? You want to see if God's working in you? He goes to verse 14 and he basically says, check your attitude. Check your attitude. Because if God is really working in you, your attitude is like it ought to be. And your attitude is a good, joyful attitude. Powerful message there for us tonight. Anybody want to comment on any of the stuff that we've talked about complaining? Anybody want to complain about anything now that we've talked about it? Any thoughts? All right, Matt, did anybody ask me any question tonight? They did not. Well, all righty. They're like everybody else in here. They just have got it all figured out. We are glad that our folks on live stream were able to be with us. We will be here each and every Wednesday night, as we keep saying, at 6:30. And then please join us at 5 o'clock Sunday night. And as I said earlier, we're going to begin a study in the life of David. And I think it'll be a good study for us as we look at the life of this great, great character. Anybody got anything they want to say? Yes.
On the mission trip front, the do not complain was because we knew things were not going to always go correctly, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. How can we report that over to our own lives outside of that?
Yeah. We can't, a lot of circumstances we can't control. You know, I think, Alan, that that's one of the things that as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little better. I wasn't that good at that in my younger days, but I think I've gotten a little more patient about some of those things and realize that there's some of those things that it's not going to do anything to complain about as well. Anything else you want to add? Thank you. That was good. Anybody else?
You know, we did the same thing in our last leaders program. Every time before we go to the convention, we say, injustice is going to happen. You're going to be your child is going to be the very best speaker in the room, but he's not going to even place. Injustice will happen.
That's a good point too, Darrell. Darrell pointed out that we tell our people here that when you go up to the last leaders thing, you understand injustice is going to happen. When I directed the conventions in Nashville, I started telling, I'd meet with there'd be a team leaders from each congregation. I'd meet with them, and I'd give them a little sermon about that very thing. Because, you know, their little girl, their little boy had the best speech, and they knew it, and they were just robbed of it. And I tried to explain to them, this is going to happen. Just get ready for it. If you get ready for it and you accept it, then that's fine. And I try to tell them that, you know, your children are going to watch you. And your children are going to react the way you react. And it's a teachable moment in life when our children see us react in some way. Maybe sometimes the reason our children grow up to be complainers is because they lived in that kind of environment. That's a very good point, Darrell. Anything else? Yes. And that's going what we said a few moments ago about taking away the negative and putting the positive. You got to do that. You just can't take away that. You got to put some positive in there as well to do away with the habit. Very good point. Any other comments? Do you like to be around a complainer? I don't. I want to get as far away from them as I can. Maybe sometimes that's why people are not around me like they want to be. I don't know. Maybe that's something we ought to think about. Yeah. Sir, what'd you say, Gyro? Oh, I am Gyro. Listen, Gyro, we are friends, Gyro. You better believe it, buddy. All right. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to have a word of prayer. Once again, thank you for those of you who are on live stream with us tonight. Brother Jim Reeder, if you don't mind, lead us in a prayer, and we'll get out of here.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this time of the week come together in your word. Father, we thank you for the time that we have together for this congregation here, our brothers and sisters. Father, help us to take this and apply it to our lives this week. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. See y'all Sunday.
Surrounds his people. Surround us, Lord. Surround us, oh I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you, all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it, when it's all about you, all about you, Jesus. King of endless worth, no one could express how much you deserve. Though I'm weak and poor, all I have is yours, every single breath. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you, all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry.